thanks for joining me, everyone. Chuck Morse, the Morse Force. Off we go. In the next segment, I'll be joined by David Rubin, who is the former mayor of Shiloh in Israel. He'll be Skyping in from Israel. He's written a book called Donald Trump and the Jews. You're welcome to join the conversation. Of course, we're live Monday through Friday around 12 noon, give or take an hour or two. And the number here to call, if you're welcome, and you're welcome to join me, is 617-396-4830, 617-396-4830. What is on your mind this afternoon, huh? Well, of course, the Trump haters are all in a tizzy over the release of new information from the Mueller probe. Mueller being, of course, the former head of the FBI during the marathon bombing in Boston, where I am. It's interesting that he actually set it up so that the FBI, which had been notified in advance of the presence of these terrorists in Boston, really did nothing about it, and that when Congressman Stephen Lynch of South Boston, whose district covers the area that was attacked, I believe, contacted the FBI and asked them for information about this, they refused to release it. Now, this is a sitting member of Congress. He is elected by you and I, the people, to protect us and to conduct policy. And for an agency of the federal government to refuse to give him information, I mean, you know, that's a rogue agency. In my opinion, Mueller should have been taken out in chains until he released the information. He should have been held if we had had a lawful government, because a congressional request like that, unless there's some kind of a national security issue that could be outlined, lawfully should be obeyed. But here he is on this witch hunt against President Trump. And it doesn't look great, in my opinion, because the left-wing Democrats are able to take over Congress, or will be taking over Congress next month, I think partially due to voter fraud, which was epidemic, but more importantly because they ran on a platform of hating Trump. You know, they want to reassert the revolution as they see it. And President Trump is a classic counter-revolutionary. And there's no real coherency there, just he's evil, he's hated, everything that happens that's bad is emphasized. I'm not suggesting his administration is by any means perfect, it's normal. You know, here in the United States, in our free orientation, we don't look to utopian ideas. We look to normality as the forefront issue. And in that sense, President Trump is normal, except for one thing, and that is that he's emphasizing the concept of America First, which is actually a very counter-revolutionary idea. And he means it. It's not just a lot of lip service, like maybe past leaders would mouth those words and everybody would wink, wink, ho, 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 yeah, you just have to get elected. President Trump means it. He wants to put America first as a sovereign state by making trade deals that benefit American labor and industry, by reasserting American pride, by reasserting American borders, by preventing illegal aliens from coming in unless they're properly vetted, unless the Congress and the president deems that they can come in. That's a normal thing any sovereign nation does, you know. And he wants to do that. His solution is building the wall, which is actually a very good and normal idea. You know, there's a report out right now that indicates that 66% of illegal alien families are on welfare. You know how much that's costing the taxpayer? You know, they talk about the price of the wall. I mean, that pales in comparison, the amount of money we could save. But for this, he's being prosecuted. And they don't care about the law. I mean, they're going after him because he paid some hooker money 10 years ago that they're going to say this is illegal and therefore he should be impeached. And they want revenge because Clinton was impeached, basically for lying to a federal judge about such things. Very similar issues, except in the case of Clinton, it was in the White House. There's a little difference. And, the Russian collusion, I mean, they're going to go after that continuously. They're going to look under a microscope. It's ridiculous. But the fact of the matter is that the combination of the Trump haters and the new Congress, with them taking over, I think we're going to see impeachment hearings. And we probably very well may see an impeachment. I don't think President Trump will be removed from office, and I think it'll backfire on them. But they're going to do it because they want to harass him moving up to the midterm elections. And they're going to go after his family members. They're going to go after his son, Don Jr., his daughter, Ivanka, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, his wife, whoever they can grab. It is something that President Trump is going to have to deal with every single day that he's in public life. These people are more than haters. They want to stop him and his America First agenda from moving forward before it affects too many people, before too many people wake up and realize that he's right and that what he's advocating is perfectly in sync with what should be normal in American life and what is normal for American politics and for what this country is built on. And so they want to stop that, and they want to go back to the days of tyranny with political correctness and microaggressions and the criminalizing of thought and the total, utter control over the individual. Which brings me to my second topic. And by the way, you're welcome to join the conversation. We are live right here at all of our affiliate stations. The flagship station, of course, is YouTube and Facebook as well. But we're on about 8 or 9 other stations. So, you're welcome to listen to the program live. Again, we come on live Monday through Friday, between maybe 11 and 12, maybe 1 o'clock, depending on my schedule. I have a guest coming up at noon. The number here is 617-396-4830, 617-396-4830. By the way, I should mention that tomorrow at noon, I'll be joined by eminent scholar E. Michael Jones, who's the author of The Jewish Revolutionary Spirit, which is a book that, by the way, while I disagree vehemently with his premise, it is a brilliant book, and it does describe the emergence of the revolutionary Jew, and it does get into what I would say are certain weaknesses in Judaism that have opened to that. What he says is the inherent nature of Judaism, which is revolutionary, which I completely reject. Judaism is conservative. But putting that aside, that's tomorrow at noon. And I want to talk a little bit about Lamarckian evolution. Now, Lamarck was a early evolutionist. He actually preceded Darwin, and he believed that the species evolves literally, not only by the generation, but even during the lifetime of an animal, or assumedly of a person. I mean, he says, for example, the famous Lamarckian illustration is the giraffe stretches its neck because it's trying to reach vegetation in the top part of the tree. And so they evolved that way. And there's an article in the MIT Technology Review based on research being done by 2 MIT students. This is by Emily Singer, published February 4th of 2009. And it's influenced a whole group of thinkers who are inculcating this idea into, or trying to inculcate it into science. In other words, they're trying to scientize evolution. And it says, I'll just read a little of it here. The effects of an animal's environment during adolescence can be passed down to future offspring, according to 2 new studies. If applicable to humans, the research done on rodents suggests that the impact of both childhood education and early abuse could span generations. The findings provide support for a 200-year-old theory of evolution that has been largely dismissed, Lamarckian evolution, which states that acquired characteristics can be passed on to offspring. The results are extremely surprising and unexpected, says Li Hui Tsai, a neuroscientist at MIT who was not involved in the research. Indeed, one of the studies found that a boost in the brain's ability to rewire itself and a corresponding improvement in memory could be passed on. This study is probably the first study to show there are transgenerational effects not only on behavior but on brain plasticity. In recent years, scientists have discovered that epigenetic changes, heritable changes that do not alter the sequence of DNA itself, play a major role in development, allowing genetically identical cells to develop different characteristics. Epigenetic changes also play a role in cancer and other diseases. The definition of epigenetics is somewhat variable, with some scientists limiting the term to refer to specific molecular mechanisms that alter gene expression. Most epigenetic studies have been limited to a cellular context or have looked at the epigenetic effects of drugs or diet in utero. These two new studies are unique in that the environmental change that triggers the effect, enrichment or early abuse, occurs before pregnancy. Give mothers chemicals and it can affect offspring in the next generation, says Larry Feig, a neuroscientist at Tufts University School of Medicine, who oversaw part of the research. In this case, the environmental change happened way before the mice were even fertile. Okay, look, this is the issue I have with this. It takes away character. It takes away free will. It takes away consciousness. You know, are we affected genetically when it comes to physical ailments and disease? I think the evidence for that is yes, we are. Affected, not necessarily that we're going to get these diseases, but sure, they can be passed down through DNA. I think that's something that's been absolutely proven. That's basic genetics. But to suggest that behaviors can be passed down genetically, which is what this is, and that's what, it's Lamarckian, which adds to it, which says that, some kind of a trauma experience in one generation is passed down genetically, physically, to the next generation. That's really a bit of a stretch. I don't doubt that it can't be passed down emotionally. If you had grandparents who were killed in the Holocaust or who were traumatized by war, you're going to be affected. Your parents are going to be affected by that, and that could be passed on to you. And which isn't to say you can't, of course, overcome it or compensate for it or incorporate it into your life. But to say that that's passed on genetically, that gets into a very dangerous area, I think. I think it's a very bad trend. First of all, it's not in any way proven at all. They can stand on their heads and scream a million times. There's no proof of it. There's no proof of the entire theory of evolution. When you get down to it, it's a theory, not hard science. But this gets into what are they going to say next? That they're going to pass down racism, pass down, murderous tendencies. It's just it takes away the ability, the concept of free will, the concept that the individual has the ability to actualize themselves based upon their own internal will and their internal and external sense of reason and evaluation in terms of what in fact they are capable of, what in fact they want to do. And it's not something that's going to be predetermined in any way other than conditions upon which someone is born. If someone's born into poverty, they're going to have a different experience than if they're born into wealth. But that doesn't mean that the person born into poverty inherited some kind of a DNA. They can get out of poverty if they choose to, or they can at least try to. They can think about it. They can strategize. They can analyze. They can take a look at why I'm here. What can I do? And they can then figure out a means. It's kind of like what Viktor Frankl talked about, the will to meaning, to deal with the situation and to get to a certain outcome or to move on a certain path. Every individual alive can do this and has done it, even in the most horrendous and adverse of situations. In fact, if we take a look at our literature, our culture, our novels, our movies, a good percentage of them are about someone who overcame terrible adversity that was meted out to them at birth or that happened to them, and they were able to overcome it because of their character, because of their internal strength, which is something that cannot be inherited. It's something that can be only realized because the individual has the internal intellectual and maybe spiritual development to bring them on the path to realize this. And conversely, I would add, you have people, and I'm not going to name names here because it's not nice, people that I know even, who were born to incredible privilege, who have brilliant parents, who are geniuses, and who are super successful and very well respected in their fields, and who have had everything handed to them, and they end up very poorly. They end up in poverty, if you will. Maybe they might inherit a few dollars, but in the real sense that they don't thrive. And many of them end up tragically due to the fact that they lack this internal will, this understanding of what they want to do with their lives, their sense of meaning. They lack this. And over time, the emptiness that results from that causes them to choose to go into a different direction. And they inherited, based on the Lamarckian theory, they should have inherited all the good stuff, it didn't matter. So the point I'm making here is that this whole Lamarckian evolution is something that we're going to see begin to permeate our scientific thinking. I've already seen it. I've already talked to some people who are into this. In fact, I'm going to try to get some people booked in the show to talk about this. And what it does is it institutionalizes the idea that we're just animals who need to be evolved. And the way to evolve animals is through the utopian state. We're run by elites who know better than the rest of us how we should live. I would suggest that the individual is capable of evolving himself or herself intellectually and spiritually as a way to actualize their life to the best of their ability and given the limitations of existence and of their environment. And that it's not something that's inherited. It's not something that evolves biologically. And that this whole way of thinking is false and is wrong. And we should not let ourselves be in any way taken in by it, regardless of how many studies and how much scientific jargon they wrap it in. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching today. I shall return with my guest, David Rubin, at the top of the hour. Tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Time, I've got E. Michael Jones scheduled. I'm very excited about that. He's a great mind, a great scholar. And I want to thank you all for watching this afternoon.